President Trump unleashing on Democrats in his fiercest support yet of his Supreme Court nominee, Brett Kavanaugh.
I can tell you that false accusation and false accusations of all types are made against a lot of people. This is a high-quality person, and I certainly hope it would be a horrible insult to our country if this doesn't happen. And it'll be a horrible, horrible thing for future political people, judges, anything you want. It'd be a horrible thing. It cannot be allowed to happen. And the Democrats are playing a con game, C-O-N, a con game.
Is there any
shame? And they know it's a con game. The second accuser has nothing. The second accuser doesn't even know. She thinks maybe it could have been him, maybe not. She admits that she was drunk. She admits time lapses. He's startled. He can't believe this is happening. His wife is devastated. His children are devastated. I don't mean they're like, oh, gee, I'm a little unhappy. They're devastated.
Meanwhile, Senate Democrats are continuing to prove that the facts don't matter with a new wave of smears against Kavanaugh.
The second thing about that interview was when he said that he actually downplayed his drinking, and he said he'd never really blacked out, so he didn't remember things. I mean, those are things that really go to credibility, given some of the stories circulating out there.
I've heard from both sides, and I believe Dr. Blasey Ford and I believe Ms. Ramirez. Both of their stories are credible, unlike his, where he wouldn't actually answer the question or say why he wouldn't be interviewed by the FBI. That's not the response of someone who wants to plead his innocence.
It is Judge Kavanaugh who is seeking a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court and who I think now bears the burden of disproving these allegations rather than Dr. Ford and Ms. Ramirez, who should be dismissed with slanderous accusations.
All right, Greg, I'm going to start with you. I think you're a good place to start. All right, look, they are throwing out the fundamental principles of the criminal justice system, and that is the right of confrontation, the right of cross-examination. These are United States senators. They've already made up their mind. They've heard from her. They've heard from him. So what's the point of having courtrooms and trials in this country? Shouldn't we just decide if we like someone ahead of time?
Yeah, you know what's interesting is that they're being honest about it now. Both Coons and Mazie Hirono, both have formulated a fairly chilling response when you ask about due process. They'll go, this isn't a court of law. You don't need a due process. And it's like, you know what? They're right. Yeah. They're basically admitting that we can crucify you without evidence or any kind of corroboration because it's not. Let's keep it out of the court of law, and so you lose. What you learn now is you lose your rights if you're up for a job. So that my solution is everybody needs to get accusation insurance because right now, no, it's true. Because right now, what they're saying is
it's called GoFundMe.
Yeah, GoFundMe. Okay. No, you're going to need allegation insurance. And the thing is, one last point, Judge, because I know you want to move on. We, as human beings, we mimic behavior. If you look at fashion, if you look at diet, you look at social media, we copy each other. This kind of behavior will spread. The exception of simply an allegation minus evidence is going to spread into other areas of our culture. It's already happening. You see it in the workplace. You see it in other places. How do we stop it?
Okay, Kennedy, how do we stop it? But I'm not going to finish there. Look, what we've got is United States senators saying that he needs to disprove a negative. How do you disprove or prove a negative? He's got to disprove that he did this. If he wasn't there and he didn't do it, number one, how does he prove that? And number two, how can a United States senator shift the burden of proof? It's always on the complainant.
Well, it's actually really smart what her legal team is doing because they're coming up with a series of demands that are almost unmeetable. And so essentially when Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee say, well, we can't meet those because they don't meet the standard for, the protocol in the Senate. But also, I mean, that's how our criminal justice system, that's what it's based upon, which essentially follows from natural law. So you're turning all of that on its head, and you can't disprove a negative.
Natural law? Common law, absolutely. And she's right. Kennedy is right, Jesse. But they're saying that she's not getting fair and respectful treatment. What say you about that?
I think the Democrats have been unfair and disrespectful throughout this whole process. To Kavanaugh with the smears and the sandbagging. Listen, everything they've done has been political. The timing, the demands, the entourage surrounding this person. So you know what the Republicans said? They said, okay, let's take politics out of it. We're not going to question her. We're going to appoint a independent sex crimes prosecutor, female, who knows what she's talking about, and she will be the ones to ask the questions, not the politicians. And then the Democrats turn around and scream and said, this is unfair, this is going to create a circus. They've been the ones creating the circus here, and this type of person has been used before in Watergate, in Iran-Contra, as well as mafia hearings. So there's nothing new to this.
An outside attorney
bringing in an outside attorney
by the committee.
There's nothing new to this, and the Democrats are just complaining because I don't believe that Ford will look good being questioned by a female experienced litigator with the story that she has. I think her story will not hold up well, and that's the reason the Democrats are upset about this.
All right. Now,
I haven't heard a word here that indicates, because the judge started up by saying Democrats are smearing Judge Kavanaugh. I haven't heard a word of smear, but here's what I mean.
He's guilty.
No,
he's guilty.
Innocent.
That is a smear.
Hold on. That's not a smear.
That he's guilty without evidence.
He's an attempted rapist.
I tell you what.
That's a smear.
Let me talk for a second, and then you can respond.
Go ahead.
Go.
But clearly, this is not a court. This is a Senate confirmation hearing. And you have an opportunity here for the judge to testify, to say whatever he wants.
Right.
Nobody has heard from Ms. Ford yet.
It's also not
a word.
convenient.
The second thing, the second thing to say, hang on, Kennedy. The second thing to say here is they are bringing in a woman lawyer because they've got 11 men on the Republican side,
yeah, and they
are embarrassed.
So they can't win. If they bring in a man, they can't win. A woman, they can't win.
They can win, but what they've got to do is they've got to give her a fair opportunity.
Okay,
so
but
what
you know what?
her lawyers have said is, hey, wait a second, we're not coming in here to be beaten up by somebody who's a criminal defense or a criminal investigator.
Prosecutor.
You refuse to even have the FBI investigate.
No, well,
you
let me ask you
refuse
this,
to have
They
Mark
want
Let me
Judge
ask you
beaten
this.
up by
The
white
rules
male
are
senators,
very
not
simple.
by an experienced
well,
prosecutor.
they're the senators. Why shouldn't they do the
Because
questioning? But
they
the big
balked
thing
at
here
it,
is
Juan.
they refuse to have Mark Judge, this guy who's now hiding out, who says that he was involved with drinking escapades.
Because once you let one witness come in, they're going to line up 7 or 8 or 9
Well,
different
wait a
witnesses.
second. A minute
and
ago,
then you're
you
going to
said,
draw it out
but
until
Jesse,
November.
Jesse, you said a minute ago, why are they rushing this? What's going on?
Wait a second. The only reason why it's being rushed is because Feinstein delayed it for a whole month and a half.
Oh,
you guys put
delayed it for
yourself in a
36
situation-
In other
years.
words, Jesse, and I can't believe this. In other words, you would say ignore the woman, especially
Ignore
after
the
she
woman.
takes the risk
She's
of
been
coming
asked to
forward.
testify for a week
Okay,
and a half.
you want
All
it
right.
both ways. Here's the
Okay,
problem.
okay.
The optics of the Anita Hill questioning were so bad and so
that's right.
offensive, and we cannot have a repetition of that in this day and age. Culture has changed, the Senate has changed, society has changed, and we're also in the middle of a movement, and we don't know how that ends. We don't know how that permanently changes society. But if you have a problem with people like Joe Biden and Arlen Specter going after a female witness or a female accuser or someone who's sworn under oath to testify before this committee, then why not try it differently? Why not have someone who's not showboating? Because when senators have their chance, like Cory Booker, this is my Spartacus moment, that's when it turns into a circus. And that's when people tune out. And that's when we don't learn the truth because everyone is auditioning.
This is not about a cross-examination.
Why not? How else do we test the truth in this country?
Because you give both people a chance to speak.
And then how do you decide? How do you decide?
Whether or not it's a credible allegation and whether or not you believe it.
Whether it's a civil case or a criminal case, there is a time. This is even more significant,
Yes,
and I'll
but
tell
it's
you
not
why.
what you said.
Because this country is going to be under the rule of a Supreme Court with a man on it like this, and that's why we need to have a test.
Wait a second. So you're saying
no?
you
I'm
just want,
saying that
you just
his
want a
role
hard right. You want a hard right Supreme
What
Court.
I want is the test of credibility
Well, then
that
fine.
we
I
used
just
from
one
time immemorial.
before we go.
All right, you're not going to want to miss the 5 tomorrow because
God help me. Let me, Judge, we're missing one big key here. He said there was no smear. We had a guy who just crawled under a rock, Avenatti, after calling Kavanaugh an attempted rapist or attempted gang raper, and then he crawled under his rock. He made Twitter private. So I want to remind how this is working to the public, how this works. Instead of diving deep on a specific case, what you do is you find a number of specific examples that alone are not sturdy. 1, Ford. 2, Ramirez. 3, yearbook. 4, Avenetti's claim. So Avenetti's claim is alone. What does it mean? The yearbook thing, it's just a yearbook. What does that mean? The other cases have no corroboration, no witness. So individually, they don't match. They're not strong. So what you do is you create an environment of guilt by using these little things. That's what the Democrats are doing. It seems to be working with the help of the media.
It is working because the more complainants you bring in, the fewer that have to be tested by the rules of credibility that we have used from time immemorial.
Oh, so these women are all idiots in your opinion.
I'm not
and they're
saying
just
no, the yearbook is.
No, Juan.
A yearbook isn't even human.
Wait a minute. I'm not going to let you get away with that, Juan.
They're not credited for willing to stand up and put themselves
Do you think they're going to show up? And if they don't show up, what does that tell you?
Well, I would think that they
What does that tell you?
I would hope they would show up. Why would you think they don't?
What if they don't?
I don't know. Why do you say that? Because you wish they wouldn't.
No, that's not true.
Do you think Avenetti's going to show up on TV tonight?
I don't know.
Do you think he's going to show up?
I don't know.
I don't think he's.
But
Do you
I
think
don't
he
think
is?
that says anything about Blasey Ford.
All right, now they want me to tease again.
Why wouldn't you let her testify?
You're not going to want to miss the fight tomorrow because President Trump is holding a press conference at 5 p.m. Eastern. Stop it. We will be bringing it to you live.